there. Welcome back. Okay, I'm excited to do this one. I'm excited to do this motherfucking episode. We finna do this one on none other than Neck Bone. Alright, from Ma Pyru. The reason I'm interested is because I don't know nothing about his background for real. I do know the Deathrow thing, but I know majority what I know from Vlad, and I know the other shit from just knowing what I know about Tupac. If you don't know and you've been living under a rock, Neckbone has been on Vlad TV speaking on all the death row shit and like all the background stories that people don't really be speaking on or people been lying about, and even explaining like what happened to Tupac and all of that from his perspective. But yeah, anyway, this the Lady of Rage's baby daddy. If you don't know who that is, then shit, you just not old enough to really know what the fuck West Coast hip hop is. But we need to see what the fuck this is about, cause I heard he got caught up in a raid and shit. I don't really know what happened, but he said motherfuckers raided his mama and his daddy crib, or his stepdaddy crib, or whatever. But I really want to see his story.
So he get to hollering and screaming, talking crazy. You can't talk to me like that. Bam, bam, bam.
Welcome to Boys in the Hood TV. Today we're going to be discussing the life of Neckbone from Ma Pyru. Now, Neckbone will be born in 1964 in Compton, California. He'll be raised by his mother as an only child. Now, as a kid, he would attend Mark Twain Elementary. Now, later on, he would attend Whaley Middle School, where he would meet Suge Knight in the 7th grade. Now, Neckbone had a love for playing sports, so the following year, he would join the football team, where he would meet Keefy D. Now, when his football team would go out to play other schools for games, he and his teammates would
He looked like Stacy right there. He looked like Stacy from the Wood right there.
Find himself getting into fights because Whaley Middle School was considered an all-Pyru school. Now, once Neckbone started hanging out on the block, he would start watching a smaller crew within Ludus Park called the Eastside Mob form. Now, eventually, the Eastside Mob would become Ma Pyru. Now, at the same time, Neckbone would start getting into fights throughout the neighborhood and building a daily reputation for having hands. And eventually, he would get put on as the second generation of the Ma Pyrus. Now, not long after getting put on, he would be arrested at the age of 15 while on his way to Dominguez High School by the local sheriff's department. Now, he would be arrested for a stolen bike and a box full of jewelry. Now, at the time, Neckbone was known for robbing people outside of Compton with a few of his homies. Now, these charges would lead to him doing 4 months in juvie. Now, over the next several years, he would continue to be arrested, going in and out of juvenile detention. But eventually, he would get sent to a boys' home in Inglewood. Now, once there, he would continue to play football and even get offered scholarships. But later on, he would attend a trade school in Torrance, where he would catch himself getting in trouble yet again, and this time on robbery charges. Now, because at the time he had just turned 18, he would hit the county for the first time. Now, after serving 6 months, he would eventually get out. But once back out on the streets, he would be extremely active, gangbanging and hitting licks, robbing and jacking by any means to get his money. Now, this behavior would lead to him catching another robbery charge while out in Beverly Hills. He and his older homie would lead the sheriffs on a high-speed chase throughout Beverly Hills, and eventually he would crash that car. Now, once they surrendered, his homie that was with him would tell the police that they had jewelry and money stashed in the vehicle. Now, once arrested, his homie would then turn state witness, and this would force Neckbone to take a plea deal for 5 years. Now, throughout his stay in prison, Neckbone will be transferred from different prisons due to having multiple fights and having issues after having run-ins with the Crips, who at the time outnumbered the Bloods and Pyrus throughout all the prison systems in California. He would go to places like Susanville, Jamestown, San Quentin, and Chino, but eventually by October 1984, he would hit Folsom State Prison. Now, from the moment he got off the bus, Neckbone would see the racial tension between the blacks and the Southsiders. Now, Folsom at the time was considered one of the deadliest prisons in California. Now, both Bloods and Crips would go to war with the Southsiders in the state penitentiary. Eventually, a riot would break out between the blacks and Mexicans, and multiple murders would take place. Now, Neckbone at the time was working in the kitchen, and he would slide his homies knives and different things for protection during the war. Now, by 1987, he would be released from prison at the age of 23. Now, only about a year later, Compton would have a huge spotlight on him due to the rise of the rap group NWA. Now, this spotlight would also shine a light on the gang activity in the city.
Look, I really want to say this real fast, right? If at that point, and you from California, and you know like this what's going on in the jails, and y'all got to do this for each other as far as like sticking together, making sure y'all good, why wouldn't that be able to keep peace on the street? I need to know the answer. Because if y'all know y'all gotta watch y'all back anywhere else y'all go, as far as like if y'all in that situation where it's race on race, you feel me, or it's this on that, them gang colors don't even matter, and y'all know that at that point. Like, that's what's wild to me. The fact that niggas will still be able to team up and then come back home and still try to kill each other. Because 9 times out of 10, that's how it was at this point in time. Because that's how serious that was for them at that time. But that shit sound dumb to me. Y'all still teamed up and came together and did what y'all had to do to survive. So apparently we all need each other to survive. So why fight the fact that we need each other to survive? Why take each other out? Like, we ain't doing nothing but fucking each other up. Don't matter who win. We all lost.
Compton. Now, Neckbone will continue to be active in the streets and will be out slinging dope to make his money. Now, by 1989, he will be arrested for being in possession of a controlled substance, being in possession of a firearm. Now, he will spend some time being locked up, and a couple of years later, he'll be back out on the streets. And around this same time, his homie Buntry was working security for Suge and Dre at Deathrow Records. Now, Buntry wanted Neckbone to come work with him, but at the time, Neckbone was still heavy in the streets, and that's where he wanted to stay at. But things in Compton would get even worse in February 1993 when 2 Compton police officers were gunned down. Now, the tension would be so high in Compton that police would begin to target different gang members. And in April of 1993, Neckbone would be coming out of his house, and he would be approached by Compton police officers. Now, there will be an exchange of words, and then there will be a scuffle to follow behind. Neckbone will be arrested and charged with battery on the officer and being in possession of cocaine for sale. Now, once locked up, his homie Buntry would then go meet up with Suge Knight, who would decide to come bail Neckbone out of jail. Now, eventually, Suge, Buntry, and Neckbone will all become super tight. They would even go out to clubs, flamed up, and get into fights from time to time with different hoods. But once Deathrow started to grow and get more and more artists, Neckbone and Buntry will be working security heavy for them, especially when they went to clubs. And it was said that when something jumped off, Neckbone was known for knocking shit down on whoever had a problem with Deathrow. Now, Neckbone will prove his worth to Deathrow and eventually be put on Deathrow's payroll and start making some legit money. Now, he will become an enforcer for Deathrow along with Buntry to keep things in order, working security, especially for Dr. Dre's Chronic Tour in the fall of 1993. Now, at this time, Deathrow would explode with the success of Dre and Snoop, and this would lead to Suge Knight needing to bring in more help for security because Neckbone and Buntry couldn't do it by themselves. But Neckbone didn't only just work security for Suge, he would also listen to demo tapes and even be in meetings with Suge along with Jimmy Iovine. But at the time, Neckbone was still out on bail and his court date would come up and he would be convicted and sentenced to 2 years of prison for assaulting a police officer and being in possession of a controlled substance. Now, while in prison, he would find himself being placed in the hole after causing a riot. Now, later that year, his close homie, Big J.
Hey, real shit. Hey, I'm a salute to him because I knew he was gonna be different when we jumped into this. I knew this nigga was gonna be different because when I watched his interviews on Vlad, he be just saying real shit, and I know a real nigga when I see a real nigga, even if you gang banging. It don't matter if you is or not. Like, the reason I say real nigga is because he was open, honest, and he made himself vulnerable at a point, even in the interview, where he was speaking on losing friends and the streets not being what he thought it was. That was one of the main reasons I respected him at like the end of the day. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is the fact that he beating up police. Like, if he fighting the police like that, and they had to put battery against an officer on his shit, bro. That's the realest nigga we done did. Because ain't no Crip, no blood ever fought no police officer in none of these videos that we didn't react to. Real talk, they just be lying to niggas and acting like, they getting bitched in that situation. But it's understandable because they're going against the law. But when you man enough to punch a police officer up, bro, you a different breed, bro. This is why I say I don't believe niggas from back then. I don't believe niggas from back then would like really fuck with niggas now. I think that niggas from back then had probably had these niggas shook or something, because these niggas ain't finna put their hands on each other, let alone put their hands on a police officer.
Big will be shot and killed while in Atlanta with Suge Knight at a club. And this will hurt Neckbones to the core because Big Jake was his homie. But by 1995, he will be released from prison only 1 week after Tupac had just signed to Deathrow. Eventually, he and Pac will become good friends. And he will become somewhat of a big homie to Pac, who he would always try to give advice to and keep him out of trouble anytime Pac would be fired up. Now, Neckbone would get close to another Death Row artist named Lady of Rage, who he would eventually have a relationship with, and they would have a child sometime later. Now, Suge Knight, at the time, owned a club called Club 662, which was a known hotspot. And one night, RZA from the Wu-Tang was trying to gain entry, but was refused due to overcapacity. And this would lead to an altercation between Neckbone and RZA, because it was said that RZA was talking crazy to Neckbone, who in return would put hands on RZA, and it will ultimately lead to RZA chain coming up missing.
So he get to hollering and screaming, talking crazy. You know what I'm saying? He got the rings on with the little spikes on him and everything. He just woofing. Before you bam bam me, I'm gonna bam bam you. Yeah, he got his chain took.
Now in 1996, Tupac would record his hit record called To Live and Die in LA, where he would mention Neckbone's name.
Yo, this explain how fucking Tupac got this nigga chain. This is why Tupac gave this nigga his chain back. Because people be like, yeah, Tupac gave RZA his chain back or whatever. This is how Tupac got that nigga chain back. Because he was signed to Death Row. This is how deep that shit was. Hey, he said he got his chain took. Fuck is you talking about? This shit is only funny because I always wondered how Tupac even got the chain, or had it even had anything to do with Tupac. Now I know it really had something to do with Death Row, and now I really know it was just like that type of a situation. Because they always made it seem like it was just a random club, and Tupac just had this pool and this juice. Like, no, Tupac knew the nigga because he was cool with the nigga, and he knew him well enough to talk to him like that and be like, yo, I can get the chain, I give it back to him, this and the third. Because niggas didn't know who he was or whatever. I'm assuming, because if he just if he just pieced him up and took RZA a real nigga though. I gotta say that RZA a real nigga, because if he that small and he trying to get up on the nigga like that, like, cause Neckbone ain't no little nigga. That nigga look like he like took good 2 something, damn near 3. You see all the muscles on that nigga? Okay, so RZA a real nigga. I gotta salute that nigga on this one. That's the one thing I can't say. You got your ass beat, but I'm gonna salute you because of the simple fact you stood up for yourself. Shit, you stood your ground. But yeah, next time make sure you got a gun or something on you, because them LA niggas wasn't little back then.
Now, Neckbone wasn't too keen on his name being mentioned due to the attention it would draw, but eventually he would give Pac the green light to go ahead and keep his name in there.
I got Neckbone, hair on, punch you too.
Now that same year, Neckbone and his homie Trayvon Lane would move into Suge Knight's old parents' house out on Orchard. Now at the time, the beef between Death Row and Bad Boy Records was known worldwide, but it was also known that Puffy had close ties to the Mob Piru rivals, the Compton Southside Crips. Now things would get bad in the fall of 1996 when Neckbone's homie Trayvon and other Mob Piru members were attacked by the Southside Crips at the Foot Locker at Lakewood Mall. But after this, only weeks later, everything would come to a head September 7th at the Tyson fight. Neckbone's homie Trayvon would spot the Southside Crip Baby Lane and point him out to Neckbone. But before Neckbone could even respond, Tupac would take off on Baby Lane, knocking him to the ground. And this would lead to Baby Lane being jumped. But not long after, Tupac and Suge would be shot while riding down the street. Now, Neckbone's car at the time was boxed in, so he wasn't able to keep up, so he would jump out of his car, but by the time he did, the Southside Crips had already driven off. Now, 6 days later, Tupac would be pronounced dead, and Compton would become a war zone between the Southside Crips and the Pirus. Now, this would lead to multiple shootings on both sides, including multiple murders. Now, the following month, the police would raid Neckbone's house, and he will be arrested in connection with the murder of a Rolling 60 Crip named Bo D, which took place in 1995. Now, while in custody, Neckbone will come face to face with the Southside Crip, Baby Lane, who was also arrested around that same time for a murder and related to a shooting in Compton. But Compton police will realize that at the time of the murder of the Rolling 60 Crip, Neckbone was still in prison, so it was impossible for him to be responsible for that murder. Eventually, Neckbone will be released. Now, after his home was raided, Neckbone would then rent an apartment in North Hollywood, getting out of Compton completely. But around this same time, his homie, Lonnie, had just got out of prison. So this would lead Neckbone to going back and forth from North Hollywood to Compton to try to convince his homeboy, Lonnie, to get out of the hood. But things would go from bad to worse. On December 14, 1996, Neckbone, along with his homie Lonnie and Trayvon, were headed to meet some females. Now, on the way, Lonnie wanted to stop and talk to one of their homies, but Neckbone was against it because the war was still going on in Compton, and at any time, something can pop off. But after a brief argument, eventually Neckbone will pull the car over at a convenience store at the corner. Now they would start smoking and drinking and kicking it and talking. And one of their homies named Ball Gang would come up and start chopping it up with Neckbone and Lonnie. But sometime later, as Neckbone and Lonnie and Trayvon was about to get back into the car to leave, a white Buick Skylark would come through and start shooting. Everyone would scatter and start running, and Neckbone would run inside the convenience store and try to grab the owner's pistol, but the store owner would grab it back. And seconds later, bullets would start flying through the window, just shredding through all the food and water bottles throughout the store. Now once the smoke cleared, Neckbone would walk back outside and run to his car. But that's when he noticed that his homeboy Lonnie had been shot 14 times. A total of 50 shots had been fired at that scene. But sadly, by the time officers arrived on scene, Lonnie would be.
Damn, nigga, you know how bad niggas gotta want you dead to let off 50 shots, nigga? You ain't Young Dolph, nigga. No, but on some real shit, bro. I know for a fact that that chain didn't get took, but like niggas did try to take the chain, and this is why it's point out with them niggas as far as the East Coast West shit. Like niggas be acting like niggas be so innocent when in reality they don't, cause like niggas was putting a bounty on them chains and shit like that. But my main thing that I really want to say as far as this situation go is, nigga, I wouldn't have stopped in the hood for shit. If you know California, how you know California, you know it ain't no reason for you to stop in the hood for shit. Don't stop in the hood for shit. Talk to nobody. Tell them niggas come meet y'all where y'all going. That's what I would have told them, motherfucker. But especially with me already separating from the hood and knowing I'm separating from the hood for this reason. But I know when it come to California, it's hard to get away from a lot of shit because California is so connected and intertwined and shit. So it's real hard to still get away from a lot of shit. But this is why you gotta watch how you move and watch what you do, because it will come back and it's gonna come back in some type of way and you might not be prepared for it.
And I was dead. Now, police would later arrest a Palmerno gangster Crip for this murder, and the suspect would be sentenced to life in prison. Now, the following year in 1997, Neckbone will be riding through Beverly Hills looking for a spot to rent for a new R&B group that Suge Knight has just signed. But while driving, he will be pulled over by the police. Now, they would search through his car and find drugs, and this would lead to Neckbone being arrested for being in possession of a controlled substance. Ultimately, Neckbone would be found guilty by a jury and be sentenced to 7 years in prison. Now, while being locked up, he would stay in contact with his homeboy Buntry. But sadly, in 2002, with only a few years left on his sentence, Neckbone would get the phone call that his homie Buntry had been shot and killed. And at this time, there would be Pyru on Pyru violence throughout the entire city of Compton. And Neckbone would lose a lot of close homies in this war, and this would cut him deep. Eventually, Neckbone will be released from prison in 2004. Now, at the time, Suge Knight was locked up, but Suge would help Neckbone get back on his feet. And over the next several years, Neckbone would continue to work for Deathrow until Suge would eventually lose the company. Now, Neckbone will go on the straight path and stay out of trouble from the law and get out of the streets. He would eventually get a job working at the DMV for the next 15 years. And as of today, he could be seen doing interviews on social media. I would like to thank everybody for tapping in, and I'll see y'all next time.
Man, I really want to get into this though. As far as with Neckbone, this is why I say he was a real nigga. You see, he changed his life around. He wasn't trying to do that shit no more. He acknowledged that at an early age, even though he got caught with shit tweaking. But you really pay attention to his demeanor and shit, especially when you hear him speak now. You can see a lot of that shit he regrets doing. A lot of that shit he actually feel like was dumb on his path. Um, what the fuck else was bro saying? Like when it come down to all this gangbanging shit, it's really no coming back from it. So when you be thinking shit is sweet, you could let some shit go, and motherfucker might still be holding on to that. So things like that do happen, and people will come for you if they can. And that's why the fuck I always try to say this shit in these videos and put that out there. But as far as like the Deathrow war and shit, where he was losing all his homies was killing each other at this time. And had he been out, who knows what would have happened to him. So God might have been protecting him without him knowing. But that's something we don't know. That's something, you know, it's only he'll know. But that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. Sometimes it'll be your own homies that'll get you. And you never know where it's gonna come from, man. He was in jail when all of this shit was happening. Suge wanted one of his homies killed. Y'all can go watch the videos, bro. Ponytail George and all that shit. I got a whole playlist on that shit. I will leave it in the motherfucking end of this video. And I will even post it in the beginning. But yeah, I'm not gonna get too deep into that. But him and a few of his homies, basically, they was all basically running shit with Suge. And at some point it just got twisted and fucked up, and then after that niggas wasn't running with each other no more. Niggas started killing each other basically. One person tried to kill one person and they didn't succeed, so the dude ended up coming back and killing everybody that tried to, you feel me, come after him, and it became an ongoing war between them as far as the mob power rules and shit. But that's why I say none of this shit is real, bro. You think it's a brotherhood, bro? Where? Because we seeing so many stories and it be so much shit going on that has a lot of times to be the motherfuckers that's supposed to be with you, with these drug dealers. A lot of times it be niggas that's supposed to be their homies that be killing them or robbing them. It's the same old scenario, bro. But y'all let me know what the fuck y'all think. I fuck with motherfucking Neckbone because, like I said, he changed his life around, and he really spoke honestly and openly about his gang life and all of that shit. Like, he actually was 100 with everything, and he ain't make it seem like, he was over tough or none of that. He was a real nigga about everything he said. He even said how he truly felt about certain situations, which I didn't expect, because I know a lot of niggas that go on Vlad TV and be trying to cap and flex and do all this extra shit, which I didn't see him do. He gave me real. And to see that in this day and age, you gotta support it. That's why I always fuck with him. So that's my main thing. And even when he spoke on Tupac, he spoke on Tupac in a genuine way. He never spoke on him in like a, well, it was a lame ass nigga. And like how Mob James be trying to do Pac. Like, he ain't do none of that. Even though Mob James supposed to be really one of them ones, I be feeling like he be on some whole shit a lot of times. But I'm out, man. I don't know what the fuck y'all think.